Well, so you're on a certain show at DreamWorks, right? And you kind of, how does it work with people being assigned? Did you get assigned to that show, or were you? How does that work? How does that whole process work?
So at least in my experience, at least at DreamWorks, in order to be an assistant editor or an editor or one of those positions at DreamWorks, or usually any of the major studios, we call them the majors, they're union shops. What is union? Okay, so union is, you know what a union is. I'm not going to explain what a union is. I'll just say this.
How about specific to an editor's union? Because you're in one, right?
Right. So there's Local 700, which is my union, which is the Motion Picture Editors Guild. So I'm technically a member of the Local 700 Motion Picture Editors Guild. There's a building for it, and right across the street is Local 600, which is the International Cinematographers Guild, right?
Is your name on a plaque in there somewhere?
No, but I have a union card. I just got a bill. I just got a bill to pay my union dues. I can pull that up for you. You want me to go grab that?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you actually want me to go grab that?
Ryan chimed in. No, very stern.
Yeah, Ryan is not interested at all in seeing that.
But I think it was cut in half. It was like 64. There's a collection. So there's a collection of unions, and certain shows. It's interesting. Even if it's a movie or a feature or whatever, typically the industry term that I've come to learn is they call them shows. What show are you on? Which is weird, because if you're on a movie, you probably want to say movie, but show is
right. Yeah, that's the term.
I'm on a TV show, so I'm like, yeah, I'm on a show, and it's like, right, but that's the term. So depending on the show, depending on the studio. Can you hear this screaming? Hold on.
I do hear that.
I heard a little bit. It's not bad though.
Not bad.
They are never this loud, I swear. I mean, that's not true. They're this loud, but they're never this loud at this time of the day.
Josh, what is apartment life like in LA?
It's tight, and we were previously in a studio apartment, and I am so thankful for not in that apartment. This is a little bit better, but anyways, I'm sorry. I hope it's not bleeding in.
No, you're good. You're good.
So basically, if you wanted to be on a union show, you would have to have a bunch of non-union hours. You'd have to fulfill a bunch of requirements, and then you could apply to be on a roster. And if you're on this roster, then a show at DreamWorks or one of these companies,
you get like drafted.
You.
Yeah.
Basically, it's part of the hiring. So imagine you went for an interview and they really liked you. If you weren't, suppose it was a union show, if you weren't on the roster, they wouldn't be able to hire you.
You're not on the list, man. Right. Not on the list.
So it's a little crazy, but that's... So in my case, I got really lucky being at DreamWorks and being within a studio system. I was kind of able to get into a union position by virtue of getting the job. And then I worked towards my union hours to be able to then have, health benefits and things like that.
Okay.
Because that's not coming from my employer anymore, right? So technically, I'm a union member.
That's how
union dues.
Oh, comes from the union.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. Well, one thing I think you brought up too is, so how does it work? Because I've heard a lot of people talk about how when you're working on, say, like, a lot of gigs for like a movie are contracted. So it's like when we now know show. So when you're working a show, it could be, a 6-month contract or a 2-year contract, but you're full-time employed by DreamWorks. So when you're,
yes,
yeah, that's my question is, like, can they just say like, bye?
Typically, I think I think animation is especially this way. And this is kind of what I was looking for. And this is kind of to go back to our conversation earlier. I feel like I found a weird thing where I have a 9-to-5 job. It's really 9 to 6. We work 9 to 6, and then we have
you get an hour lunch. Yeah.
But so I have that job, which is generally those hours. They and even especially in TV, they want you to stay within those hours because it's budgetary, and they don't want to pay overtime. And it's also in the industry. So I feel like I found this weird balance of like office job in the sense that it's like more of a traditional job, but it's still in the entertainment field. So I feel like for me, that was something I was really looking for, because you kind of have that balance. You have a balance of, you kind of know what to expect. You're generally not going to be like I said, working crazy hours overnight on a remote shoot or something like that, which, to some degree is exciting. But, as far as like a traditional job, it's more like that in that way. And yeah, so I'm on these projects. So previously I started on Troll Hunters. That was the first show. It was a Netflix show. It was a Guillermo del Toro Netflix show. And then I've been fortunate that show has spun off into other shows,
right,
which has granted me a job that lasts longer than expected, right? Because the project goes one to the next to the next.
I just got kamikazed by a moth.
They're out tonight.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's awesome.
Hypothetically, after this project, my luck will run out because I don't necessarily think
maybe
the last show was called Wizards, so that'll be coming out actually end of the next month, I think. And then I'm on another project that I can't talk about at the moment.
Ooh.
After that, there's nothing really left at the moment. So yeah, the idea is if you're in a studio system, you try to stay in that studio system. And if the studio likes you, then they're going to try to keep you around. But do
they like you?
Availability, right? I don't know if they like me, but
I think it's
based on availability. So even if they like you, hypothetically, and they don't have a gap show to put you on or something like that, if there isn't another thing, because you'd be billing to that show, because you'd be billing to that budget. If there isn't a show there that requires a position, then you don't have a job.
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense.
It's and that's
does that happen to you?
On me. Not yet, right? I mean that's definitely worked on me, and I mean my first experience with it was like I was moving from production assistant to animatic assistant editor, and I was going to a show called Home, and I was on the show maybe 3 weeks. This is my first job as like doing this thing that I want to do, right? So I'm already a little worried about that. And like, this show had been going on for a while, a couple of years. A lot of the crew had worked together for a long time. I think it's like my third week or something. And we get called into this big meeting and they basically get told like, hey, so, Netflix isn't buying more of the show, right? Because that's why TV works very well. It's guaranteed money. Somebody, Netflix, whoever it is, sets a show budget, they pay for it, and then I believe they get paid on an episodic basis, right? So like when you deliver an episode, you get paid and you can balance your books. An episode, Netflix decided they didn't want to go deep with the show, meaning they didn't want to have multiple seasons. It's better to go wide. So especially for kids programming. So instead of you having 6 seasons of the show, even if it's working really well, what's better is to have a couple seasons and then do a spinoff and then do a spinoff.
Yeah.
Do a spinoff because it's new. That sells better. So anyways, now you have all these people crying in a room because they've worked together for years. And I'm like, I just got here. So
hi, my name is Josh.
Well, that was scary for me because I'm like, I just jumped from this job that I would have had as a PA for another X amount of years. It would have been safe.
Right.
And I just jumped to this other job. And now within a couple of months, the show's ending. So I hypothetically will be out of a job. Right.
Right.
And then, Mike, to answer your question, basically what happened is I worked on it for a few months and then they were gifted with a holiday special. So that bought me some more time. Now, all of a sudden I had another few months because I was working on that. And then as my end date, they call it an end date, started getting closer. The producer from my old show, the executive producer kind of was like, hey, you're an editor now, or you're an assistant editor now. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you should come do that with us. And I was like, that'd be cool. So then I was able to roll on to the next show. So
interesting because it feels like that reminds me, it's almost like contract work. It's almost like freelance work where you work on a project for a little bit and then when it's over, you move on to the next thing. But it's so weird because you work for DreamWorks.
Yeah.
Where it feels like you work for like you said, like a corporate job. It's like you're working for a large company, but like even then.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
Your 365 days a year isn't even guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like you're not even guaranteed,
it's at a certain point. Yeah.
It's still not guaranteed.
And, I mean, you're right. Cause it's like, there's definitely positions at DreamWorks that are more typical, right?
Yeah.
So you have people like the department that we interned in, the education department.
Yeah.
They are not assigned to a project. They're considered overhead. And, unfortunately, as
not anymore,
as corporate overlords took over, they started slicing that department. But the idea was, right, if that department isn't directly generating revenue for the company, then you're considered overhead. So they, would have a job indefinitely is the idea. They're not on a project. Work for the studio.
Yeah.
You're making classes for the studio. As new people come in and out of projects and whatever, the need is still going to always be there.
Yeah.
To educate, to train on proprietary software, whatever. for people like us, or, for someone like me, yeah, you're there for the project. And when that project's done, you're right. It's like freelance. Hopefully you get on to the next thing, but it's not guaranteed.
There you go.
Yeah.
I feel like that sounds negative.
It's just very interesting. It's not negative.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me back to when we were just on with a bunch of old people from old friends and colleagues from when we worked at DreamWorks.
Bunch of old people.
Bunch of old folk.
No, people of all ages that we worked with when we were at DreamWorks, and a lot of them, since we've seen them, have been at 5 different places. About whether that means they're doing it for them or that's kind of where I started to hear this thing of contractual work of like, oh, I got to go work on this show for 6 months, then I went here for 2 years. And it was kind of that whole thing. So, it looks like it.
On the mic.
He's here.
Donate to my OnlyFans account.
What?
Fly baby.
Only bucks.
Only bucks.
Oh, go on the mic.
Go on the mic.
I don't want to be on mic.
All right, folks. What?
I was just going to say, just off of your comment, I didn't realize how many people work for it's like, oh, if you work for DreamWorks, you're probably not going to work for Disney, or you imagine there's not reciprocity there, I guess. Or in my head, I had always imagined it wouldn't you wouldn't necessarily jump back and forth a lot.
Right.
It's very typical. Someone gets a job at Disney and they work on something for a bit at Disney and they come back to DreamWorks, or they come back to another studio and then they go back, they
just jump from show to show, really.
Yeah, and that's why I think, people always say the industry is really small. The animation industry is even smaller. There's just a lot of people that you see overlap because of, one, it being kind of a specialized thing, and two, just the way projects go. You're just going to work with a lot of those people again, potentially.